The Senate had an opportunity today to defend that right, and they failed to do so. But let's be clear, this fight is not over.
But make no mistake, it is not Roe v. Wade codification. It's an expansion.
People lining up all kinds of vehicles just to get a box of food. Senator Trump, how could we forget?
The lying liars who lie were lying yesterday about the Senate codification of Roe versus Wade. That Roe versus Wade, that is not what happened. We're going to bring that entire thing to you. Joe Biden got a little bit yelly. And also stick around to the end because peak irony has reached the top. Holy cow, I've got a good show for you today. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Car Live, and it starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go.
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for tuning in to Daily Caller Live on today. It is May 12th, the year of our Lord 2022. We've got a good one today. If you stick around, because you gotta figure out what's going on with this Senate abortion bill that failed yesterday in the Senate and what it actually is versus what you're being told from your mainstream media. Also, Joe Biden gave a couple speeches yesterday in which he wandered off the teleprompter, and people were, I'm sure, very, very scared who work for him. Like, oh my gosh, what's Grandpa going to say next? And also peak irony. I kid you not. If you have the time, or if you want to watch this back later, click to the end of it, of this episode, the last story we're doing. Peak irony has existed. It is. I've never seen something more ironic. And I'm not exaggerating, and I don't think I'm overselling it. But I want to get to this first. The lying liars who lie. Maybe not necessarily a picture of Kamala Harris there. Just happened to be there. You know, I don't know. But yesterday, the Senate was put to task to vote on a bill that everybody was calling the quote-unquote codification of Roe versus Wade. That is not what it was. That is absolutely not what it was. But before we get to that, here is the actual vote on the Senate floor, in which, or when it went down. And I mean down as in like, not like, oh, it went down as it happened. It went down like it literally went down. If you haven't already, click the little like button, little share button. Would really, really appreciate you doing that. And also, I think people need to see this because it's being called the Roe versus Wade codification. That is not what it is. Check this out from the Senate floor.
Mr. Manchin, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 49, the nays are 51. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to.
So the bill failed on the Senate floor. Okay, so that's what it is, right? The bill failed on the Senate floor. Joe Manchin did not vote for it. He is a Democrat, but is not a liberal. He said that himself. He's like, I've never been a liberal. I'm a Democrat. He's a union guy who is from West Virginia, a state that went heavily to Trump in the last couple cycles. And also the most recent primary in the GOP, was it the Senate primary or was it a congressional primary? I'm not entirely sure. But Trump's endorsed candidate won in West Virginia. So Donald Trump has huge pull there. So what I want to get to is this. The lying liars that lie about these sorts of bills. Kamala Harris, after the vote failed yesterday, took to the internet to say these couple things. So we're going to play what Kamala Harris said. Then we're going to contrast it with, Then we're going to contrast it. How do you, transformer? Then we're going to contrast it with what Joe Manchin said and what is actually going on. This bill was called the codification of Roe versus Wade. I'm going to repeat that because it's not true. The codification of Roe versus Wade in the Senate was not a bill that was on the floor. But Kamala Harris still took to the internet yesterday to say things like this. Now, stay tuned because we're going to refute literally everything she says because she's wrong and probably just flat out lying about it. Watch this.
I just presided over the Women's Health Protection Act, and sadly, the United States Senate did not vote where the majority of Americans are, which is the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. The Senate had an opportunity today to defend that right, and they failed to do so. But let's be clear, this fight is not over. And clearly, we also know that we need to elect pro-choice leaders from the local to the federal level who will defend and uphold a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
Okay, so couple things there. First things first, the polling shows that people were against overturning Roe versus Wade. However, we talked about this last week. That is not at all what the American people actually think when it comes to actual polling. When you run a partisan poll that says, do you think women should never be allowed to get an abortion at any point? 70% of Americans are like, I'm pretty uncomfortable with definites. And that's where they get that quote unquote majority polling number. But the majority of people asked, I would guarantee you, given when you juxtapose it with a bunch of the other polls out there, I would guarantee you that those people are not entirely aware of what overturning Roe versus Wade would do. So that's an entire lie. Then the other thing she said is the Senate did not vote to protect women's rights. Here's the thing. It was not a codification of Roe versus Wade, as we're going to see from Joe Manchin in just a couple seconds. Instead, it was an expansion of abortion rights or abortion law over the entire country. And Joe Manchin explains it pretty well. I'm going to let him do that. Watch this.
The bill we have today to vote on, the Women's Health Protection Act, and I respect people who support, but make no mistake, it is not Roe v. Wade codification. It's an expansion. It wipes 500 state laws off the books. It expands abortion.
So there's that. Joe Manchin making it utterly clear that the quote-unquote codification bill was not a codification of the abortion laws throughout the United States. It was not a codification of Roe versus Wade. It was expanding abortion laws. He said it wiped 500 different laws from the states off the books. So that was also a lie. So here's what I'm curious about and what I think a lot of people are going to be wondering. There's one more clip from Joe Manchin that I think you need to hear because it's the most important thing I think that I loved what he said. But before that, I want to get to a couple of the tweets. Nancy Pelosi said, today, Senate Republicans lined up in lockstep behind Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump to vote to rip away the constitutional right of health and freedom for American women across the nation. That's not true. And we'll get to why. Joe Biden said a fundamental right are at risk and that the Supreme Court, Senate Republicans have blocked the passage for the Women's Health Protection Act. They have chosen to stand in the way of Americans' rights to make a personal decision about their own bodies, families, and lives. Again, not an accurate statement. Here's the thing that I think we should all be aware of from a political side. This is a political move. It has nothing to do with governance, which is why I think what Kamala Harris said right afterward was so abhorrent. Ian Bremmer, who is a commentator, measures risk around the world type of guy, Ian Bremmer tweeted, why did the Senate Dems demand a vote on an expansive abortion rights bill that was guaranteed to fail when Manchin and several Republicans were prepared to support a bill to endorse Roe versus Wade? That's the question. The bill was never designed to pass, and I feel like we should all know that. Going into an election year, Democrats, rather than codify what they believe, which is what Roe versus Wade was, and that's what they called it. It was not that. Rather than actually endorse Roe versus Wade, they decided to put up a bill that was never going to pass, never going to get the support of Joe Manchin, never going to get the support of anybody on the Republican side, and instead went for this super partisan expansion of Roe versus Wade, which is not what the American people want at all, just so that they could use it in the midterm elections. That's how cynical this all is. Watch Joe Manchin talk about, this last clip from him, but he puts it out brilliantly. If you haven't already, click the little like button, little share button, would really appreciate you doing that. Watch this.
And with that, that's not where we are today. We should not be dividing this country further than we're already divided. And it's really the politics of Congress that's dividing the country. It's not the people. They're telling us what they want. And it's just disappointing that we're going to be voting on a piece of legislation which I will not vote for today.
I freaking love that. The people are telling us what they want. The politics aren't dividing America. It's the people, the people aren't dividing America. The politics within the legislation is what's dividing America. The people are clear on what they want. It's absolutely clear. The polling, like we've talked about on this show, the majority of Americans support the ability, whether or not it makes it uncomfortable, whether or not it makes them a little bit uncomfortable, but they support the ability to have an abortion for the first trimester. Second trimester and on, it drops off a cliff. That's what the people want. That's where the majority, the overwhelming majority of America is. This bill put up by the Senate was not that at all, and that's why Joe Manchin said, yeah, I'm not going to vote for that at all. Went on a little bit of a tear there. If you missed any of that recap, Joe Manchin didn't vote for a law because they were lying about what the law is. He said earlier, too, that he would be in favor of voting for an actual codification of Roe versus Wade, which has much more limits on it than I feel like people know or even think about. But he said that that was not this. This is not what happened here, and so that's why he didn't vote for it. Speaking of, one more quick point to make that I feel like is important and necessary. This is not the first time this sort of thing happened. Nancy Pelosi in 2021, right after January 6th, the January 6th riot, could have put up an impeachment trial. I can't think of what the term, could have put up impeachment that actually would have removed Donald Trump from office. She could have done that and gotten Republicans to support it, especially after how crazy everything was right then. She very, very easily could have done that. However, in a political move, she decided to name some vague impeachment article that she knew Republicans weren't going to vote for, and she knew she wasn't going to get the votes needed to actually remove President Trump from office. Because she thought, in her calculation, she was better off having him still out there as a viable candidate than remove him and completely remove him from the political spectrum. So just so you know, when Democrats are out there crying about things, when they're crying about abortion and Roe versus Wade and codification, when you see their tears on TV about how this is going to damage women's health care rights, they very, very easily probably could have actually got this to go through. But instead, they decided to make a political move. Think about that anytime you see any Democrat crying on TV about how bad it is, because they could have fixed it and they could have had Joe Manchin support, like he said, he would have supported an actual bill that would have codified Roe versus Wade, but they didn't for political purposes. So there's that. I'm a little bit angry, but not as angry as old man Joe here. Yesterday, Joe Biden gave a bunch of different speeches. I was live tweeting, and by live tweeting, I mean like I live tweeted one thing about it. He gave two speeches in Illinois yesterday, one about farmers and the other at an electricians union. Both times he wandered away from the stage and started saying things off the script. Now, I think I've made a decision on my own just in terms of the fact that I feel bad making fun of a old man who's pretty senile at this point and not have the ability to think through things or speak in an effective way. If it's a really, really bad gaffe, I'll bring it on. But I don't know. I think we all know at this point that the guy can't function like he used to. That being said, I wanted to pull this clip just from a political standpoint. Joe Biden not only has lost the ability to cognitively think through thoughts before articulating them, he's also lost the ability to be compelling, I think. When people give speeches, there's a way to come across as passionate. And that way is not often yelling at the camera or yelling at the audience. I think the president, not only, again, this is completely putting aside the fact that he hasn't been able to articulate a thought clearly. He's lost the ability to convey passion or adamance in a topic or a thing. Watch this. He just sounds angry and yelly. We're not even talking about the actual content of what he's saying. It's just the ability to be a political actor is lost on this guy. Watch this.
Remember those long lines you see in the television? People lining up all kinds of vehicles just to get a box of food in their trunk. How could we forget? People were hurting. And what does the MAGA crowd want to do? Forget it. Forget it. God, this is the United States of America. The idea that people would have to wait in line an hour and a half to get a box of food in their trunk. It's unbelievable.
So at one point in time, Joe Biden was good at this. Again, this is entirely outside of the content of what he's saying, but strictly the idea to convey passion to an audience. Barack Obama is incredible at it. Donald Trump even had his moments where, he pulled back and was relatable in a way on a stage. Joe Biden can no longer do that, and it's pretty evident and clear. When he is told to make a point passionately, he ends up just yelling into the microphone, which is a whole other thing in how he's able to come across to voters and also world leaders. So there's that. I want to get to this. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached peak, and I mean peak irony. The Washington Post published a story yesterday in which they said, an opinion piece that said George Washington University needs a new name. George Washington University needs a new name because of racism. The historic racism that existed through our founding fathers was too hard to bear. Racism, this is from the article, racism has always been a problem at GW. The university's founding in 1821, enrollment was restricted to white men, as was the time. Again, not saying that that was good, but you can't judge people in the past by today's moral standards. I can go on reading this, and none of this is going to sway anybody. Everybody who already understands the irony here is going to already get it. But here's the funniest thing, in case you haven't caught it already. I wanted to bury the lead a little bit because I wanted to see if people would recognize this before we went on to just outright say it, because I feel like it's obvious. An opinion piece said George Washington University should change its name because of racism, was published in the Washington Post. We can't have a school named George Washington University, says the Washington Post. Dude, this is what I'm saying. We've reached peak irony. My wife made a hilarious joke, which I thought was funny. She said, I wonder if people are going to say, but yeah, the newspaper was named after the state, not the person, and therefore it's okay. Again, if the Washington Post, now, this is, just to be clear, this is from a student at GW writing in the Washington Post. This is not a staff opinion columnist. This is not the editorial board. This is not a writer who works specifically for the Washington Post. But an editor still did decide to publish this. An editor did still give it a headline because this is how this stuff works. So, essentially, the Washington Post ran a story that said George Washington University, that name is too racist. We can't handle it. That's not going to work. For us, it's too degrading, and the historical trauma is just too big to remember. Despite all of the fantastic things that George Washington did for the country, we can't have this name on our campus. At least that's what the Washington Post was saying about George Washington University. Or, you know what? Maybe we'll go this other way. I think the Washington Post needs to change their name. It's clearly racist, and we can't stand for something like that. That is what it is. I'm going to leave that there, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. That's what we'll do. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Would appreciate you doing so. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere on the Instagram machine. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I got to bring this up really quick from today. So the Joe Manchin thing yesterday, Joe Manchin voted against the expansion of Roe versus Wade bill in the Senate. This is a photo. If you're watching this, not listening to it on the internet, this is a photo from my Twitter search this morning. I just typed in Joe Manchin on Twitter. Joe Manchin popped up, and then immediately under that, in the Twitter suggestions was Joe Manchin address, which is an algorithmically sourced search result, which makes me curious who's tweeting about what Joe Manchin's address is. This is not going to end well, America. I guarantee you that. Now we'll be finished. If you haven't given me a follow already, just type in JOBOB on any of your social media platforms: Twitter, Gitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of the good stuff. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Also, if you have online capability, or what is it, 1:30 today Pacific, 4:30 Eastern time, I'll be on the TPUSA live couch today, so making jokes about the news and probably talking more about Senator Manchin and the lying liars who lie, all of that stuff. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.